Today's mini lesson is on arpeggios. Arpeggios are mainly found in two forms, without turns or with turns. Let's start by talking about arpeggios without turns. An example can be found in the opening of the third movement from Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata. So let's talk about what it takes to kind of get to a point where you can play that opening run pretty solidly, both in tempo, volume, and evenness. So let's start by just using a simple C major arpeggio. So playing an arpeggio should feel as relaxed as just playing a scale. For simplicity's sake, let's just take those first 5 notes, right? And just translate the way that you're playing that to how you play an arpeggio. The main difference is just that you're going to have to accommodate for the spaces between the notes in that scale to play the arpeggio. But it should be really relaxed. Should not be feeling any stress anywhere when playing this. You don't really need to lift your fingers super high. You can if you're trying to get more finger strength in, but there's a lot of different ways of playing it. Do what feels right to you. You know, if your hands are smaller, you might be doing a slight rotation here. Otherwise, you might not need to do that at all. You might have a little bit of an oscillating motion. You might not have any at all. So play around, see what works for you, and then start to practice that. So how do we start to practice these arpeggios? A couple different ways to practice these arpeggios without turns. One is just going in the same direction. Start slow, then add speed as you feel comfortable. If there's any stress, identify where that stress is coming from and address that first before moving on. You can change the way you practice this. Right? Similar thing coming down. Then there's also just going up and down. And you can just play with as many variations as you want to just get that feeling in your fingers. And soon enough, it'll just be similar to the opening of the Moonlight Sonata. Now let's talk about arpeggios with turns. When you got it down, playing like that should feel really relaxed, really natural to you. The biggest challenge that I see with arpeggios is the turn that you have to do. It's a lot bigger than what it would be with just a scale, right? Super small, just one note wide. But here, you have a whole fourth that you need to do this turn. And so the biggest challenge is going to, one, be able to get to that turn in time, right? And then also be able to get to there without any real differences in volume between the notes. So an exercise you can do to practice this is kind of similar to what we were doing earlier here. Instead of letting your pinky play that top note, sub it out for your thumb. This is going to feel really weird at first, but this gets that turn motion practiced, and that will make you more familiar as you're playing more arpeggios that will require a lot of these kinds of turns. And let's talk about the turn itself. Really slowly, it's going to look something like this. Right? My thumb is sweeping under to get to that next note. So practice slow first, as always. And on the way down, your finger's gonna come over, right? So first, thumb goes under, right? And then finger comes back over. So practice that slow. And make sure that it's all really even sounding, because that's what's gonna make your arpeggio sound really good, especially when played fast. If you have these little dips in volume, or if you're not getting to these turns in time, it's going to have a really big impact on the overall run, especially if it's longer and it's spanning a couple octaves or something. As you start to pick up speed, if you're trying to play a fast arpeggio, one exercise that you can do, kind of just stop at that turn and then try to get that to be really clean even when played at fast tempos. Right? It sounds nearly identical to when I'm not using a turn at all. And that's how it should be if your turns are coming really nicely. And same with on the way down. Let's do like, you can just start from here, right? Without turns, with turn. And then as that sounds good, then put it in place with a larger arpeggio. Now let's talk about arpeggios with black notes. Let's take the F sharp major arpeggio as an example. When you're playing arpeggios that involve flatted notes, your fingers can be flatter to also accommodate the fact that you have a larger margin for error, right? My fingertip doesn't need to be exactly where the black note ends. It can be a little bit further out. And that's gonna be really helpful for arpeggios too, because that way, when we're making the turn, right, look how far my thumb is from, or the tip of my thumb is from the key itself. The F sharp major arpeggio is a really great one to practice for solely black noted arpeggios, but obviously a lot of other arpeggios, say like A flat major, are also going to feature a lot of black notes mixed in with, you know, just this one white note here on the C. So you'll notice here, my fingers still stay fairly flat. And that's usually how I play most of my arpeggios. Flatted notes, my fingers will also be a bit flatter. For white notes, my fingers will be a little more curved because that helps me with accuracy. So yeah, that's pretty much it for arpeggios. The end of the Moonlight Sonata's third movement actually features arpeggios with some turns, so I'll play a little bit of that and let me know what you guys think and if you have any other questions.